It was a cold evening when Jake decided to take a walk through the park near his apartment. The streetlights flickered slightly, casting long shadows on the ground. He pulled his jacket tighter around himself and continued walking, lost in thought. As he passed by a bench, he noticed a man sitting alone. The man was wearing an old-fashioned suit and a hat that covered most of his face. Something about him seemed unusual. Could he be waiting for someone? Maybe he had lost something? Jake hesitated for a moment before approaching. "Excuse me, sir. Are you all right?" he asked. The man slowly lifted his head, revealing deep, tired eyes. He smiled faintly. "I suppose I am, but I might not be for long." Jake frowned. "What do you mean?" The man sighed. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Jake felt a strange mix of curiosity and concern. "You can try me," he said. The man took a deep breath. "I shouldn't be here," he admitted. I think I've traveled from another time." Jake blinked. "That can't be possible," he said instinctively. But as he looked at the man's clothes and listened to his words, doubts started forming in his mind. "You might think I'm crazy," the man continued, "but I remember waking up this morning in the year 1923. I was in my office, writing a letter. Then, suddenly, I was here." Jake didn't know what to say. He could be making it up, or he could truly believe it. "There must be an explanation," he said. "Maybe you hit your head? Or maybe someone brought you here without you realizing." The man shook his head. "I don't think so. Everything looks so different, the lights, the cars, even the way people talk." Jake thought for a moment. If this was real, what should he do? Call the police? Take the man to a hospital? Or should he listen and try to help him? Instead of making a quick decision, he sat down next to the man and asked, "What do you remember before you arrived here?" The man's expression softened. "I remember finishing my letter. I was writing to my brother about a new invention. Something that could change the way we communicate forever." He paused. And then, nothing. Just a strange light, and suddenly, I was here. Jake considered the possibilities. Could this man be telling the truth? If so, how was he going to help him? If not, what had really happened? "If what you say is true, we need to figure out how you got here," Jake said. He looked around. The park was quiet, with only a few people passing by. "Did you see anything unusual before arriving here?" The man shook his head again. "Just that light. And then I was sitting on this bench." Jake took a deep breath. If this man really was from another time, they had a mystery to solve. One thing was certain: this was no ordinary night. Jake decided to test the man's knowledge about the modern world. "Do you know what this is?" he asked, pulling out his smartphone. The man's eyes widened in amazement. "Is that some kind of miniature radio?" he asked. "I've never seen anything like it." Jake smiled. "It's a phone. We can use it to talk to people, take pictures, and even look up information on something called the internet." The man seemed overwhelmed. "That's incredible," he murmured. "In my time, we could only communicate through letters and telegrams." As they continued talking, Jake realized that the man's knowledge of history was impeccable. He could describe events, people, and places from the 1920s in great detail. Either he was an excellent actor, or he was telling the truth. "Do you remember where you were when the light appeared?" Jake asked. The man nodded. "I was in my office, standing near the window. There was a storm outside, and suddenly there was a flash of blue light. Jake thought for a moment. Maybe it was some kind of electrical phenomenon, he suggested. A time travel accident? The man shrugged. If that's the case, how do I get back? That was the real question. If he had somehow traveled through time, could he return? And if so, how? Jake looked up at the sky. The stars twinkled above them, as if hiding the answer. I think we need to retrace your steps, Jake said. If something happened when you were near a storm, maybe we need to find another one. The man nodded slowly. It's worth a try. They spent the next few days researching weather patterns and historical anomalies. Jake used his phone to check old newspapers and scientific reports. He even contacted a local professor who specialized in quantum physics. Eventually, they found something interesting. A similar event had been reported in the past. People who had disappeared and reappeared under mysterious circumstances. Could it be the same phenomenon? One evening, as another storm approached, they returned to the park where the man had first appeared. Thunder rumbled in the distance. If this works, Jake said, you might wake up back in 1923. The man smiled. And if it doesn't? Jake shrugged. Then we'll keep searching. The sky lit up with lightning, and the man stepped forward. Thank you, Jake, he said, for believing me. Before Jake could respond, another flash of blue light filled the park. When he opened his eyes, the man was gone. Jake stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty bench. Had it really worked? He checked his phone for any historical records of a man claiming to have traveled through time. There was nothing, no mention of a lost traveler. No unexplained reports. It was as if the man had never existed. But deep down, Jake knew the truth. He had witnessed something extraordinary. And as he walked home that night, he couldn't help but wonder if time travel was possible. What other secrets did the universe hold?